Welcome back to the Pediatric Speech Sister Network on YouTube. You might be tuning in on LinkedIn, and you are watching the Praxis Speech Sister Show, otherwise known as Passing the SLP Praxis exam. My name is Melanie Evans. I am your host. I am a certified speech language pathologist and life coach, and I am so passionate about helping other aspiring speech language pathologists pass the certification exam so that way they can live very abundant and fulfilling careers in speech language pathology. So on this show, I teach you all about the mindset and study and test taking strategies that I personally used or that I wish I knew at the time when I was studying to help me get a 13-point increase on the SLP Praxis exam. So if you are new here, please go ahead and subscribe to this channel. You might be watching on YouTube. Please go ahead and subscribe. If you're listening on podcast, go ahead and download it because we will be dropping new episodes every single week to help you get over this hurdle. And I also just want to pause and give a shout out to the Praxis preppers who reached out to me. It's the summertime as I'm recording this. So I've been getting a lot of Praxis preppers reach out to me and say how these podcast episodes are not falling on ears who don't want to hear it. Okay. These podcast episodes have been very helpful. And that's very great to know that I'm able to serve in this way. So, if you haven't already, I do also recommend that you download the free Mindset and Study Prep mini course. That mini course will give you mindset strategies that I learned in my life coaching program, from goal setting to setting effective habits to embodying the identity to learning how to release things in your environment that might not be serving you and learning how to expect a passing score. I also briefly discuss the different study strategy that I use to pass, which I'll actually be digging a bit deeper in this episode. Lastly, go ahead and you will see in these show notes, check out that checklist, the Praxis Prep checklist, because this is kind of like a spinoff of the checklist where I give you about 5 steps that you should take as you are starting your practice journey. I talk about the different materials that I would recommend. I talk about the importance of taking a practice exam, etc. So let's go. Let's get into today's episode. So if you are feeling overwhelmed about taking the SLP Praxis exam, maybe you have already taken the exam and haven't passed. Trust me, you are not alone. As you probably have guessed or gathered, I did not pass the exam my first time. I did not consider myself a good test taker. I had test taking anxiety that I didn't really know I had. I don't even think there's really a name for it exactly, but I don't know. I went and I took the exam the first time and I didn't pass. And I also was looking back in hindsight and realized, okay, I did not study like a winner. I did not study like someone who knew that their success would be inevitable with the study plan. And you might be listening to this and you might be like, I am studying like a rock star, Melanie. Okay, I'm doing the best I can. I'm not doing this willy-nilly. Okay, I'm actually really trying. First of all, kudos for you because you really are trying. I want to give you a new strategy that I use with myself and that I've used to help other praxis preppers reach the hurdle and cross over the hurdle of passing the SLP Praxis exam. And if you already have a study, not study schedule, but a study flow that helps you, maybe you can add some of these things in. Or you might be listening to this and be thinking, I actually don't have any plan. I'm just kind of going here and there. I'm using this material, I'm using that material, but I don't actually have a flow. You've come to the right episode because I will tell you, especially if you're neurodivergent, if you have ADHD or autism, or especially if you have like short-term memory, you need organization. You need a structure that will actually help you and guide you along this path without feeling overwhelmed with all the different materials or the different strategies and so on and so forth. So I said all of that to say, here is a sneak peek of the study framework that I use in my Passing the SLP Praxis programs. If you are interested, if you are already interested, or if you listen to this episode and you're like, okay, I can definitely use someone to hold my hand through this journey. I would love to be your girl. I would love to be your cheerleader, your coach, your accountability partner. And I'll go ahead and put a link to a free discovery call in the show notes as well. So, the first thing I will say to do on the Praxis framework is, first of all, take the practice exam. So maybe you haven't already taken the practice exam, but maybe you've taken the actual exam. Great. Okay. So you might be kind of thinking, oh, I failed. I didn't pass the exam. All my other friends passed the exam and I didn't pass. First of all, comparison is the thief of joy. So I'm going to just go ahead and say that right now. But I will also say you really are actually at an advantage because now you know what your weak areas are. Let's just say, for example, you see and you're looking at the content areas and you're seeing that foundations and treatment, for some reason, your scores were low in that area. Now you know what to actually focus on. Same thing, the ETS practice exam is almost identical to the actual exam. It's the same company. You can also use FRIPTI, but I will say that ETS, they do use the content areas as described in the actual exam. So go ahead and take that practice exam, create a study plan. I outline all of that in the checklist that I mentioned. You might hear my dog panting, by the way. And after you create your study plan, this is what you're going to do. First, you're going to take a practice quiz. So you're going to honor your study plan. And when I say honor your study plan, I mean you set out the plan and you honor the version of you who was like, okay, self, on this day, we're going to study anatomy and physiology, for example. On this day or on this week, we're going to study speech and hearing science. On this day and this week, we're going to study aphasia. Honor that version of you who knew exactly what to do. Okay. And I'm just telling you this from experiences and from someone who continues to have to plan and outline steps because that version of you knew what they were doing. Do not second guess yourself. So let's just say, you've decided, okay, this week I'm going to study anatomy and physiology. Take a targeted practice quiz that has to deal with anatomy and physiology. What that does is it helps you understand your weak areas and identify the concepts and terms that you might need to review. Okay. The second thing I recommend is to create a key term sheet. A key term sheet is essentially like your study guide. That's what you're going to use after you take that practice quiz. And when you're like, okay, first of all, I'm taking this quiz and I had no idea what that word meant. And that threw me off with the whole entire question. And then I started second guessing myself. Or I'm trying to use the process of elimination. And unfortunately, there's like two terms on questions B and C that I honestly have no idea what they were. So I just chose A because I at least know what that means. I would recommend writing the answers that were on B and C down. So that way you can remind yourself to review that. That will empower you when it's time to take the actual exam. And that will definitely empower you when it's time to retake that practice quiz. Do that and rinse and repeat. Then, after you do that, I recommend deep diving and reteaching yourself. So, use that key term sheet. Use that key term sheet that you created for yourself. And remember, I really recommend focusing on one subject at a time, just so you're not getting overwhelmed. And I mean, really just treat it like your baby. So that way you can really understand the concepts. And so, if you decide to go and deep dive and reteach yourself, yes, I mean, reteach yourself. I have had and even myself included, have had so many praxis preppers come to me and say, oh, well, let's just say, for example, voice. My voice teacher was amazing. But let's just say, for example, voice. A lot of people's voice or fluency teachers were not all that great, and they've had to reteach themselves the content. Surrender to the process and reteach yourself. You're about to be a certified speech language pathologist, so it's definitely worth it. And that's why I say keep your eye on the prize. With the version of you who is a successful speech language pathologist, breeze through the voice chapter just because it's too hard, or with the version of you who is a successful speech language pathologist, focus on the voice chapter because they know that that is what they're getting certified in. And they want to be able to answer questions when people ask at IEP meetings, for example. And the reason why I said IEP meetings is because a lot of us school-based speech language pathologists think that we can just kind of breeze through. I'm not trying to call anyone out, but we think that we can breeze through those medical concepts. But no, they are just as important. And it is really important to be very well versed in each and every subject. I'm off my soapbox. Yes. And then the final thing that I recommend is to take the practice test again. So give yourself at least 3 times. Let's just say that you're deciding to study in a 12-week period. Give yourself at least 3 times to take the practice exam. So maybe once a month, you're taking the practice exam. Okay, weeks 1 through 3.5, I'm studying. And then that last Saturday, for example, I'm going to take the practice exam and rinse and repeat. I'm going to figure out what content areas I struggled with. I'm going to figure out what types of questions threw me off. For example, select all the apply questions. I'm going to figure out my time management and how I can improve in that way. And then I'm going to strengthen those skills with this next month that I'm studying. Or maybe you are studying in a 6-week period. It really is the same thing, but I still, again, recommend 3 weeks. So maybe at the end of the second week, I would recommend taking that practice exam. So that way you make sure that you are on track with the concepts. That way you are monitoring your strengths, monitoring your weaknesses, strengthening both of them. So that way you can get a quantum leaped score on the SLP Praxis exam. So I hope that this episode helped you. If it did, please reach out to me on Instagram at Praxis Speech Sister, or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I will also be sure to put some freebies in the show notes for you all to check out and help you on your Praxis journey. And again, if you are interested in one-on-one coaching, I am so excited to especially help out those summer Praxis preppers. Reach out to me with the link